Alright guys, so we are now entering chapter 2. And so we're going to get further into questions now that we understand what the protein does. We're going to go further into why and things that can affect it and all that good stuff. So, go ahead and the usual, please have Amplified open so that you can see what I'm doing and then go straight into it by pausing. That way it doesn't take as long. So I think you have only 2 things, I believe, that I attached to this. So you should have this video, well, I guess 3 things then, because this video. But this video, and then you should have your amplified lesson, and then you should also have a 2.1 annotation discussion that is for your specific class. Go ahead and pull that up too. We're going to use that towards the very end. And yes, so let's go ahead and get going. Go ahead and pause it and make sure you have all that stuff open. Okay, so this is where you should be at. And once again, it might open you up to lesson brief. Just go ahead and go straight to warm up. If it has you at warm up, perfect. Oops. Okay. So this is what you should see. And this is your warm up. There's these cute little spiders. Actually, I think they're pretty creepy looking, but you know, maybe you think they're cute. And why do organisms make different proteins? The Darwin's bark spider on the left makes proteins that result in spider silk with high flexibility. So that's this guy right over here, right? Let's see. This guy, he makes high flexibility. But then the spider on the right, this big old guy, makes protein that results in spider silk with low flexibility. Using the space below, explain why you think this happens. So why do you think their proteins are different? Okay, we've talked about how they connect and all that, but why do you think there's different proteins? What is causing them to be different? So go ahead, pause the video, and do your warm-up. Pause and do. Alright, then you should have a little button that says hand in, and then you click next activity. Boom, guys, we're like a quarter of the way done now. So next we're going to go into active reading, and with this chapter we are going to be asking the question of why do Darwin spiders make different proteins for silk flexibility? So why do Darwin spiders make different proteins for silk flexibility? Why are they different? Why? That's our main thing, okay? And in science, that's pretty much what we're always asking is why or how. So in our previous lesson, we learned that traits depend on the proteins in the cell. Whatever the protein, the specific kind of protein is the trait that we get, right? So we all have features. We talked about features, and all of the spider's feature is silk. Every spider produces silk. And then its trait is the type of silk it is. And the protein molecules are what determine what kind of silk there is. This is all review, right? So protein structures changes traits functions. Remember, structures, functions, and traits. Okay, whatever the structure was, remember some of them were they just look like sticks, other one had 2 connectors, and then another one had 4 connectors. So whatever the structure was changed the function of the trait. Different organisms have different protein molecules making trait variations, right? And that's what we're talking about with these spiders. There's a variation of protein traits. There's a variation of traits because there's a variation of proteins, okay? We don't have just all low flexibility silk. Instead, we have low, high, medium, and those are the ones that we're dealing with. You know, in reality, there might even be in between all of those. So that's just something to think about. So now that we understand what's the best word for this? I guess now that we understand the point of protein, now we understand what is causing the traits and causing us to all have different traits instead of all of our features being the same. Now that we understand all that with the protein, we can go in deeper and ask why. Why is protein different? What causes the protein to be different? So, in the Bay Medical Company, which is who we're working with, right? They want to breed for medium cell flexibility. And so this lesson's question, we want to ask them why organisms make different protein molecules for particular features, right? So if we know that the main question of this whole chapter is why do Darwin spiders make different proteins for silk flexibility? But right now we want to focus on why organisms, all organisms, because if we can understand all of them, we'll be able to pinpoint the spiders. So if all organisms make different protein molecules, why organisms make different protein molecules for particular features. And so the Bay Medical Company wants to do medium. So we need to think about that, right? So if we can understand all of the organisms, and we read in the last lesson about different proteins that made people run faster, right? So why are the proteins making them run faster? That was something that we kind of got into and you guys discussed with each other. And now we need to understand why do the spiders have different proteins? So now we're going to go deep into that. And so the investigation question, how can organisms, sorry, that's my paper from my notes. How can organisms make different protein molecules for a particular feature, right? I just said that. I'm going to keep saying it so that you guys know what we are trying to learn. Repetitive. I'm sure you guys are tired of teachers always telling you the same thing over, but we need it in your brains because guess what? When I come at you tomorrow and say, what was our question? I need you to be able to answer me. So we have to use what we've learned to go deeper. Right? Because we had to learn what caused features and what caused traits to be different. And now we know it's proteins. But now we need to understand why. What causes those proteins to change? Why are there all different proteins? And it's just kind of like when you're a baby, right? You don't just jump out of your mom's arms and you're like, all right, I'm taking off. I'm just going to start walking now and feeding myself. It's a process, right? And babies actually have to learn how to eat, and then they have to learn how to chew. And then once they get all those nutritions in, then their bodies grow stronger, and then they can learn to crawl, and then they can learn to walk. And so, and all of that goes into us as we are now. If I never learned how to walk, I would have never been able to run track, which was my life in high school, okay? If I couldn't have ran track, I would have probably not tried in school. The only thing that made me try in school was because I got to run track, but I couldn't have run track if I never learned how to walk. If I never learned how to chew my food and get all my nutrition, I would have never been strong enough to walk. So learning is the same way. We have to start from our bases and keep moving up. Okay, so this is why we have to pick apart and get taught things repetitively, right? We don't just learn how to walk and then stop doing it. We learned how to walk and now we continuously do it. So we learned about proteins and that they change trait or that they affect traits and they're what cause traits to be different. Now we need to go a little deeper and learn why proteins are different. And so we are going to do some active reading, so annotating. And with that, here are some guidelines that I want you guys to think about. Sorry, I had to cough really bad. I want you to think carefully about what you read. Pay attention to your own understanding. As you read, annotate the text to make a record of your thinking. Highlight challenging word, add notes to record questions, and make connections to your own experience. Examine all visual representation carefully. Consider how they go together with the text, right? Connections are really, really important. After you read, discuss what you have read with others and help you better understand the text. We'll go more deeper into how we're going to discuss it with each other while we are in our distance learning. So let's go to the next page. And so, okay. So we're going to read the hemophilia proteins or genes. And this was sent to us by Dr. Satari from the medical company that we are working with. Remember, we are working with them as researchers to figure out how they can breed more spiders that produce that specific medium flexibility. Because remember in our tree chart that we've been looking at, you know, this mom and this dad had 4 babies, but only one of them produced the medium flexibility. So we want to help them figure out how can they breed these spiders to make sure that a majority, if not all, of the spiders that are produced have that medium flexibility. Because if they just keep producing all these spiders and only 1 out of 4, it's going to take forever to get all that silk to be able to make these stitches and these fake tendons. So we need to help them. So hemophilia is a blood disorder caused by differences in proteins. And we're going to go deep into that with this article. But I want you guys, if hemophilia is something that you've never heard of, this is going to be a great article for you to make lots of notes on your article. I'm going to be reading all of your annotations. And I don't want you to ever feel like I can't believe I thought that. That's dumb. I should have known that. Never think that, because we don't know something until we're taught it or until someone's shown us. Trust me, I have, they're called epiphanies, where you're like, aha, moments all the time on things that, you know, my husband or my family look at me and say, are you really just now figuring this out? Those moments are good, okay? Remember, I am one to teach you guys that mistakes show that we are learning, so make them. But always learn from them. Don't keep making the same mistake. So let's go ahead and open this article. I'm sure you guys are tired of me talking by now. So, if you want to pause it and make sure that your article's open, you can do that as well. So here we are with our article. And I know that, oh, I gotta go up. Okay. So I know that some of you, and we've done one article already with annotations, but I want to go over a few more things with you guys just as a recap, okay? This way nobody gets confused and maybe you missed an assignment and you missed my video. So remember that over here is where you can find more articles. Today we're only reading this one. So in the last one we had like 3 or 4, maybe 5 different ones. Today we're all reading the same article. And so this is where you would find all your other articles. Now I want you to also remember that over here, if you are trying to find a specific note that you write, here it is, revealed words. Well, we haven't revealed anything because we haven't read it, okay? And so, and then you can also search for different things. If you are like me and you like to be read to while you read along, you can go ahead and click this button right here and it will read it to you. That helps me concentrate. Guys, I've said this before, I'm pretty sure. I hate reading and I'm horrible at it because I fought it my whole life. And it is just, reading's just a part of everyday stuff. That is the number one thing that will never go away. No matter what job you get, you will always have to read something. And so just kind of get used to it. And annotating helps you guys to understand things that you don't know. And that's the best part. I wish I would have learned annotation early on, but I didn't learn it until I got to college. So I, to this day, am still really bad at reading. So I annotate. If you went through any of my books, I have notes everywhere and highlights everywhere. I am not one that could ever return my book because I just scribble all over it. So bear with me. I know that some of you think that annotating is a waste of time, but I promise you, learn it now, and then when you get to college or when you get that job that you have been badly wanting and you start getting all these paperworks and books and stuff that are a lot harder, you're going to be like, thank God I had to do all that nonsense. Trust me. So let's go ahead and start. And we have hemophilia, proteins, and genes. So right here, you can already see, hemophilia. Now, I'm going to make a note of this because hemophilia is not something that is an everyday word that we hear. So what is it? And so that's a question that, as I'm reading this, I see hemophilia, proteins, and genes. Okay, I know what proteins are, right? We've been looking at it in The Sims. Genes, I know that has something to do with DNA, but I don't know too much about genes. And hemophilia. What in the world is that? So looking at it, and looking at the fact that there's all these scratches and weird stuff in these images, I'm going to put that I think this is a disease. And I'm going to put a question mark because I'm not sure. And then I'm going to put hashtag question. And this is going to help me later on so that I can maybe, hopefully in this article, it answers this question for me and I'll be able to put underneath it, check out paragraph, blah, 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 blah. But for now, let's just keep going. So you see all these scratches, and this is very interesting. See, this is an open wound. Now this is what's happening in your body. And then over here, you see all these scabs. So I'm assuming that this has something to do with the title. So let's keep going. Let's see. You fall off your bike and scrape your knee. Blood drips out, but soon a scab starts to form and the bleeding stops. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Well, however, if you could zoom in to see what's happening on the molecular scale, it's not simple at all. So I'm going to stop right there. And okay, I'm going to kind of visualize what is going on. Okay, I was riding my bike, I fell off, which happens all the time because I'm a klutz, and I scraped my knee, and now there's blood everywhere. I'm thinking, oh my god, what am I going to do? And then my body's like, don't worry, we got this. And then a scab happens. Well, now I have this giant scab on my knee, and I either am proud of it or I try to wear pants. Hopefully it's not the middle of summer. So that's what's kind of going on. But then it says, however, you could zoom in to see what's happening on a molecular scale. Okay, let's highlight molecular scale. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to think, okay, I'm pretty sure I heard Mrs. GD talk about this. I believe this means something we cannot see with the naked eye. Now guys, I know that I kind of went into a little depth in that note. Maybe you're just going to put molecular scale means something really small that I can't see, or however you thought of it. Remember, these are your annotations and they're not wrong. I'm not going to get on here and grade your annotations and be like, this annotation is wrong. Why would you put this? If I see something and maybe you do have the wrong definition, I'm going to mark it and I'm going to say, okay, I need to be more clear. This is something that I need to fix as a teacher, okay? So that's something to think about. And now we're just going to move on. I want you guys to also think about the molecular scale of the sim. So maybe you can think, oh, we've been working with molecular scale, and you can put we've been working in a molecular scale on the Sims. And then I could put hashtag connection. Woo! I made a connection. Guys, I want to see connections, okay? Even if it's like the smallest, tiniest connection. Those are really important because that's the whole point of reading these articles. If we don't make connections, well, there's no point in reading them because then it's just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. Okay. So then let's keep reading. We made our note, let's keep reading. It's not simple at all. Your blood includes 13 different protein molecules. Dang, protein molecules. Again, I feel like this is a really important word that we should really know. A type of large molecule that performs important functions inside organisms. Okay, by now I should be getting to know this, so let me just go ahead and highlight this word. And I'm just going to make a note and say, for repeated many times in this chapter. All right, and then I'm just going to put hashtag important. And then I'm going to save it. Okay. So let me start from that sentence again. Your blood includes 13 different protein molecules called clotting factors. When you injure yourself, these clotting factor proteins all connect and work together to form a solid clot, also known as a scab. Okay, so a clot is a scab. I'm going to put right here. I'm just going to highlight this so that I can, no, I'm going to make a note. I like notes personally because then I can remember what I was thinking, because I might think I'll remember that, but then I start reading, I'm going to jump into my ELA, and then I'm going to jump into my math, and then I'm going to come back to this in a little bit because I'm bored and I need a break from it, and then I'm like, oh crap, I don't remember what I was talking about. So that's why I always leave notes, guys. Just a heads up to why I leave so many notes. So a solid clot, also known as a scab. So I'm going to put a clot. Actually, I want to make sure I put solid clot, because the fact that they said solid clot might mean there's other kinds of clots, like dirt clots, I guess. A solid clot is a scab. I didn't know what a clot was, so now I know. I was just kind of going with the flow before. If you were missing even one of those 13 proteins, the clot couldn't form and the dangerous bleeding would continue. This is exactly what happens in a disease called hemophilia. People with hemophilia are missing one of the proteins needed for the blood clotting. Oh, well, there's my answer from the top, right? I mean, well, it doesn't tell me if it's a disease, but it kind of still sounds like a disease. So you know what? Again, actually, I want to start over here. I want to start with if you were missing. This is called hemophilia. So I'm going to put a note and I'm going to say, sounds like a disease. I'm going to put hashtag answer to question. Okay. I'm going to put save. This is exactly what happens in the disease called hemophilia. People with hemophilia are missing one of the proteins needed for the clotting. So that's nuts. The fact that just one protein out of 13 of them is missing causes this huge thing for people just to bleed out. Could you imagine having that issue of always having to bleed out? So I'm going to highlight this again, one of these 13, and I'm going to make another note. I know you guys are like, geez, she's note crazy, but this is what I want to see when you annotate. This is annotating. Yes, it's taking me longer to get through this article, but guess what? Me taking the time to make all these notes, when my teacher asked me later on, what are some things we need to discuss, or do you have any interesting things? I'm not going to have to sit there and start reading again. I'm just going to be able to click my article, see all my annotations, and go through it really fast. So taking your time reading this right now makes it so that later on, everything else goes way faster and smoother. And I'm more likely to remember things because I'm taking the time to write about them. So back to the craziness that just one protein was missing. I'm just going to put, this is crazy. And then I'm going to put, oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to enter and I'm going to put hashtag interesting. I found this interesting. You guys might not find this interesting. Maybe you found something else interesting. That's totally fine. That's the whole point. Remember, we're all different here. That's why we're learning about traits. If we were all the same, we wouldn't have a reason to learn about traits and proteins. Our proteins would all be the same. but we're learning right now that they're not. So now we see, okay, I found something interesting, and then I can just keep going down, and here's an image. So clotting factors, I talked about that, right? I stopped and talked about the clot. And then let's come up here again. So now I can come up here. Remember, I talked about this pencil and paper. When I click it, I see everything. But say in our discussion, I ask you, did you have any questions? And I just type in, oh, I forgot, I have to put hashtag question. Well, I guess it popped up still, but you know, just in case, maybe I have hashtag question of a question or something. So here's my hashtag. Or maybe in there it says something interesting. What did I find interesting? I don't remember. I read this article like 10 minutes ago. How am I supposed to remember what I found interesting? Look, here it is. Here's something I found interesting. And if I click on it, it'll take me there. So this is why I use the hashtags, guys. It's to help me find stuff. So make sure you use your hashtags. Make sure they're appropriate. Remember, you can use things like interesting, question, discussion, maybe connection, or crazy. You know, make sure your hashtags make sense though. You don't want to be using all these crazy hashtags and then when you get on there you're like, I don't even remember what I was talking about. Make sure that your hashtags relate to this. I would prefer if you stick to the hashtags that I'm kind of saying, but I know that sometimes we have creativity and I want to make sure that you guys get to use your creativity, but please, nothing inappropriate, and make sure that I understand what your hashtag is saying. And don't use any hashtags that are like for social media. I don't want to see anything like for like or share for share, something that has nothing to do with it, right? So make sure that you are using those. Let's go, so you guys are going to finish the rest of this article on your own. Not yet though, I want to talk to you about a few more things before I send you off to pause this video. And so the reason I'm stopping is because there's going to be some challenging words or phrases, and they can be something that is completely unfamiliar, such as a word or phrase that you have never seen, just like hemophilia, or it can be something that you have seen before, but it's used in a different context, right? So, for example, if I see the word cool, right? If the word cool is something that we use, well, I mean, I use it all the time. I'm assuming you guys still do. Maybe I'm out of the loop and I'm not cool anymore. But that's a word that we can use in many different ways, right? If I'm sitting there and somebody does something like, oh, that's cool. Or maybe I'm sitting in a room and I'm like, ooh, it's cool in here. Those are two totally different things, right? But I mean, if I say it's cool in here, it could mean like, oh, this is awesome. I really like this. Or it could mean it's cold. It's not hot like it is burning up outside since we live in Kern County. So cool is a word that can be used in many different ways. And there's a lot of words in our English language. And it's just like, I don't know how many of you guys speak Spanish, but sometimes there's words in Spanish that I use and I know how to use them and when to use them to explain things or anything like that. But when someone says, well, what does that mean in English? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I just know how to use it. And so that that happens to us all the time in our number one language, right? When you use a word and you're like, wait a minute, how do you explain that? It's kind of like explaining the taste of water. How do you explain that? So it's important to understand that there's going to be words that you don't know and that you've never seen, like hemophilia? Yeah, hemophilia. It's not a common word. It's not something we use all the time. So of course we're going to be like, well, I don't know what that means. But pay close attention when you're reading that there's going to be words that you do use, but maybe when you read the sentence, you're like, that makes no sense. That's not what that word means. And you can highlight that and put, I'm not understanding what this means. Okay? Because it doesn't mean you don't know the word. It doesn't mean you're less intelligent. It just means actually you're more intelligent because you just made a connection. Okay? You just noticed that that's a word I use, but it's being used differently. So why is it being used differently? What does it mean in this? You know, if I tell someone, hey, you need to go cool off, I'm not telling them, hey, go get cooler, go be cooler, go change your outfit because it's not cool. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, hey, you look really hot. You were probably just running a mile. Why don't you go into your house or the classroom or whatever and cool off because there's AC in there? But if I tell someone, oh, that's really cool, it's probably something that I like. It's totally different. I'm not telling them, hey, that needs to cool off. That's not what I'm saying. So that's what I'm trying. So I know I'm being super repetitive right now, but I want you guys to know it's okay for words to not make sense that you use all the time, and that's normal. Don't think anything less of yourselves. So let's go ahead. Let me get my face off your screen really fast. And I'm going to go ahead and exit. I'm not going to exit, but I'm going to go back into Amplify. And here's some different things that you might want to, decide that you want to use. And you might want to use hashtag share, something that you find interesting, hashtag discussed, something that you, that's more for like when we're in partners, but maybe you just want to put discuss because you want to discuss it. And since we're doing this all online, it takes a lot longer to discuss it, right? Because you might leave a comment and then somebody might comment 5 minutes later. Or hashtag present. This is something that you want to share, something that you want me to know. So you're going to present this. You thought that this was really interesting, or maybe you asked a couple people in the comments and you said, I still don't know what this means, so I'm going to present this to Mrs. GD because maybe she'll be able to help us out. So that's something that I want you guys to think about. So now I want you guys to go ahead and pause this video, jump onto Amplify, open up your what's it called? Article, right? So it's right here in the reading. It's right here in the blue. Just click on it, open it up. If you need to see the active guidelines again, go ahead, pause it, and get your annotations going. All right, so I'm assuming you paused it in your back. If not, this is awkward. Now that you've read the article, I want you to think about genes. So we read in there in the article that genes are causing a disruption in the proteins, and so there's one protein that's not being produced for some reason and cause these people to not get scabs. So a gene, as you can see on your screen, is an instruction of making protein molecules. That's very interesting, right? So genes are the instructions, and our bodies are not like our dads or our moms or our brothers that maybe even you. When you get something new that you're supposed to build, and what do? You throw the instructions to the side and say, I can figure this out. Genes in our bodies are necessary. Proteins cannot just throw the instructions to the side and say, I'm going to figure this out. Okay, we can't do that. Our proteins have to have the instructions. Our proteins have to have the correct genes. And so the instructions are important because it tells the proteins what they need to do to function properly for the trait it is supposed to make in an organism. Okay, and some of our traits are very important. Just like you saw in that article, if they don't have that specific trait, the blood just keeps going. If you get, for us, or for many of us who don't have hemophilia, if we fall off of our bikes and scab our knees, who cares? I mean, it's gonna hurt, but most of us we're gonna say, wipe it off, rub a little dirt in it, you'll be good to go. I'm just kidding, don't rub dirt in it, that causes infections. But you wipe it off, and you say, all right, eventually it's gonna stop bleeding. And then, a scab forms, and then you just go on with your life. But for someone who their genes aren't producing the right instructions, they're missing that protein, and when they fall off a bike and it starts bleeding, a lot of people, it's not just something small. They actually have to, there's some people that will end up in the hospital for small accidents like that because they have to go to the doctors have to put all kinds of medication on it so that they can form kind of like a fake scab in a sense. But for us, it's just a scab. Keep riding your bike, you know. Hop up and get going. We're tough. But some people can't do that. So that's really important why genes making the correct instructions. So let's think. What else? I have notes here, you guys, because I talk a lot. So that's why you keep hearing my papers shifting. So without the right instructions, cells can't produce the right protein. So this all comes down to genes and cells. So our cells, you know how we've been looking at the cells in the Sims, it gets blown up, and inside the cell we're able to see all the proteins floating around. And with that, inside the cell is the genes too. The cell holds everything. The cell is just the home inside there. And genes actually are made inside the nucleus. And so you have the cell, and then you have this little circle inside the cell, and that's called the nucleus. And that's like the home of genes. And genes are a part of DNA, and we're going to get all into that deeper. But right now I want you just to focus on the proteins and genes. So I want you to very clearly remember that genes are the instructions of protein molecules. And protein molecules are the ones that tell the organism what traits it's going to have, okay? And so now you can kind of see why it's so important that we have specific genes. Some things aren't as big of a deal, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter if you have blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes. It's not a big deal. There's still eyes and they still work. But some of us have to wear glasses, and that's because certain proteins, sometimes we don't have the right proteins, sometimes we don't have enough proteins, sometimes we have too many proteins. So this is all stuff to think about that we're going to get into. So here you can see, after you did your annotations, you'll be able to see all your annotations again, and then I want you to rate yourself, how successful you were at using active reading skills by responding to the following statements. As I read, I paid attention to my own understanding and recorded my thoughts and questions. Be completely honest on this, guys. I'm not going to sit here and if you tell me I did it all the time and be like, that's awesome, which I will. But if you tell me never, I'm just like, okay, this is new to you. This is something that you're not fond of. We're going to work on it because guess what? We're going to be annotating a lot. And then you just click hand in. Boom. Next activity. Your next activity is your homework. And so you're just going to go ahead and answer these questions for me. But I want to talk to you about one more thing. Before you jump in your homework, I actually want you to go and I asked you to have your 2.1 annotation discussion open. So this is what you should see on your Google slide. And I've made it so that you guys can edit this. So please don't touch my bubbles. These are my bubbles, okay? Stay out of my space. What I want you to do is, there are 4 different things here. There's connections, questions, something that was intriguing, and the main idea. And this is all you have to do. I want you to leave a comment for each of these. But what you do is you see up here, you have all these tools. You click a line, and you come over here, and you'll see all these dots pop up. Okay? I want you just to pick, it doesn't matter where it goes, but just pick one, right? And I'm going to make a line. And then I'm just going to come over here to shapes. You see next to insert image, it says shape. And I don't care what shapes you guys use. I would prefer if you didn't use arrows because that can make things kind of confusing. But if you just go to shapes and pick whatever shape you want. Maybe you're tired of seeing all the circles, so you decide you're going to use this one. Just come right here, connect it to your little line. And then you just come right up here, you click text box, put a text box right here. And then you're going to type whatever question or connections you made. Okay? And this is where those hashtags will come in handy because you'll be able to see when you made a hashtag connection, and you'll be able to just go look at it and then put it in here. And then also, guys, you can change the color by, where is it at? Right here. So if you come over here, if you click your shape again, oops, I clicked the text box, but if I click the shape, I can go ahead and change my color to green, right? And then the other thing, so you're going to do, make sure that you leave a comment for any of these. And you guys, you'll be able to see everybody's comments and everything, so you'll be able to read everybody. This is going to be our way of our discussion. But what I want you guys to also do is please read everybody's stuff. And maybe somebody has a question that wasn't a question to you and you can answer it, what I want you to do is you can click on their bubble or square or whatever they decide to use. You just click on it like I just did right there, and see right here it said it's like a little text box and a plus sign. You can add a comment, and so you put that, and then you can type. Maybe they have maybe you have the answer, and you can say, "Oh," and you don't have to be mean about it. There's no reason. I mean, it's cool, and you can even maybe you're not sure and put, "I thought that this meant." Right, and then you click comment. Now that's going to be highlighted and it's going to show over here. So now whoever left that comment, or maybe for me, I can come over here and I can click on it. I'll see what comment is there, and then everybody can just start replying and doing their own thing. This is a way for us to have a virtual discussion. So I'm hoping that most of you guys will watch this video around the same time, and everybody can kind of do their comments and everything. So maybe check it periodically if you were one of the first and you can see, but make sure you do this. So go ahead, if you want to do it right now, pause the video and do this. Once you come back, go ahead and go back to doing your homework, and then after that you guys are done. So it's, hopefully you watched the video with me and did things as I told you to pause them, and then you're done right now. So that'd be pretty cool. I know this video was a little longer, but reading and annotating is super important. Why did my screen just freeze? That's weird. Hopefully it's still going. As we keep on learning how to do annotations and it becomes normal, my videos will become shorter because you guys are going to be like, I know how to do this, I know how to rock this, and your comments are going to get better, and your annotations are going to get better, your hashtags are going to get better, and we're just going to have better discussions. And then for my 8th graders, when you get into science next year, I promise you, annotating is going to save your life because you get into a lot more complicated words and phrases. So please take this seriously. For my 7th graders, next year we will be annotating all the time, so get used to it, and maybe when we get back in class you'll be able to show me and impress me on how well you guys are doing with your annotations. So you're done. I'm sorry I talk so much. I try to make notes to not talk so much. Bear with me. I promise I'll get better at it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Okay. Adios.